Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go through the steps it takes to build a setup for the C-Open truck in iRacing for Darlington Raceway. Since I don't have mine built yet, I figured I'd take you guys along with me to show you the process I used to build the setup and allow you the chance to build your own setup as you follow along with me building as I build mine. So the first thing we need to do is we need to create a setup checklist. That way we got kind of a sense of direction of what we need to do in kind of the order in which I'm going to be doing it. And then of course this gives us the option to also check off that particular part of the setup once we got it done. That way we know everything is done when we get to the end of the setup and we didn't miss anything. And I just made mine here in Notepad, and you can simply just pause the video here and duplicate this into your own Notepad. That way you've got something to follow along with. So in the meantime, we're going to jump over here into iRacing. And we're going to go ahead, come down to the official button, click on it, and then scroll down to the Craftsman truck. This part's very important because we need to make sure that we set up our test session to match the conditions that are going to exist during the Darlington race as close as possible. And to do that, we're going to go up here to schedule, click on it, and then come down until we find Darlington in the list. Click on Drive Now, and then click Test Drive. And this will pull up our test drive configuration screen where we can set everything up. Now luckily, since iRacing has released the new weather system it has, it will automatically generate our weather that's most likely going to be in place for the race, so our weather conditions are correct, so we have the correct track conditions. That's very important to make sure that our track is exactly in the condition it's going to be in when the race starts. We want the same weather, same date, same time of year, and iRacing will do this for us if we go ahead and click on the thing from the schedule there. The other thing that's very important to do is go ahead and click on the truck in the test drive page, and there'll be an option here that says disable car damage. Make sure you turn that on. Because as we start to build our setup, the thing probably isn't going to drive all that good at the beginning, and we're likely to smack the wall, spin out, hit something, or otherwise tear the truck up, and that will affect our setup and make it drive different. And then you'll end up chasing your tail trying to figure out what the hell's going on with the truck when you're trying to chase a handling problem or an issue with the setup that's actually been caused by crash damage and not some setup change you made. So to eliminate that possibility, we're going to simply turn off the car damage so we don't have to worry about it. And this will save you a lot of time. Because if you have damage turned on and you hit the wall, all of your testing is going to be wasted because none of your results are going to be accurate. And the next thing we need to do is go over here to the realistic weather, click on it, and then scroll down until we come to track condition. Now I never leave the marbles on the track, but I always uncheck the starting track state. I uncheck that, and then I start off with a 50% track to get my setup basically built, and then I'll adjust the setup based on what the track is actually, the condition the track is in when we start the race, if I need to during pit stops. Now that we got that set up, let's go ahead and click on test drive, and this should start the sim, and we can go in and get ready to start working on building our setup. Now I'm going to pull up my setup checklist here, and I'm going to slide it off to the other monitor so that we can see what we're doing. You should have your setup checklist copied down by now and already open and ready to go. In the meantime, we're just going to simply wait for our iRacing to load up here, and then we'll get started. Alrighty, now that we got the sim loaded up and we're at the track, we got to go to the garage area, and the first thing we need to do is go to our iRacing setups and find the fixed setup for Darlington. Click on it and then click open. That's the very first thing we need to do. And then once we get that done, before we do anything else, we're going to go up here to the chassis, set your steering ratio to whatever you usually prefer, I like 12 to 1 personally. That's just my preference. And then make sure you set your steering offset to 0 degrees. This is very important because we're going to use this information to go out and do a few runs and use this to help actually calculate and figure what our actual steering offset should be when we get ready to get to that part. So with that set to 0, let's go ahead, click done for the moment, and then click on test, and we're going to go out and run about 3 or 4 laps. First thing I want to do here before we get started, I want to make sure that I don't have any files in my telemetry folder. I'm just got to find the thing there. Click on my telemetry folder. And I do have files in here, so I need to get rid of them. There, that's taken care of. Now I'm going to turn telemetry on. You may have, if you haven't already done so, you may have to actually map a button to your telemetry. You can do that in the options section of iRacing. Now that we got telemetry running, we're going to go ahead and start this thing up, and I'm going to run about 3 laps. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to kind of pay attention to what the truck is doing on the track, see what my brakes feel like, so see what my brake bias actually is feeling like when I'm going into the corner. And we're at 62.5 right now, and it feels pretty good. It might need a little more, but not too bad. And then what we're going to do, then we'll come around here and run another lap or 2. Now, unlike Dover, which for the Xfinity car, the fixed setup on that was all screwed up, this truck setup actually don't feel too bad for being the fixed setup. It could be better, and that's what we're going to do now, is make this setup into a good custom setup that you can actually do something with. And it sounds like we might have the splitter hitting as well. And Darlington's pit road is always a pain in the ass to get onto. Okay, we'll just come on to pit road, we'll stop, get out. But before, we'll have to go back in here and turn off my telemetry. So it won't generate your telemetry files till you turn the telemetry off. Okay, let's get out of here. And make sure I got my telemetry converter program running, and it is already, thankfully. So it's going to go ahead and convert that iRacing telemetry file into a file that my telemetry analyzer, which is called Motec, can understand. And what we're going to do is go ahead and open up Motec now, and I'm going to go ahead and load up that telemetry file, which is this guy right here. Go ahead and click open. And right now it's on the suspension thing, and we don't really need that. We're going to go down here to steering, and I'm going to drag this little cursor here on this pit map of the racetrack until I'm on the back straight. And I'm going to kind of go down the back straight while I pay attention to the steering wheel angle to find out what the steering wheel angle is with 0 offset as I'm going down the straightaway. And it looks like that one is basically staying around -2 to 0 degrees. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it over onto the front straight, since this track is kind of shaped like an egg, just so that I can get kind of an idea of what the steering offset should be overall. And it looks like on the front straightaway it's going to be about -2 to -3. We'll double check the back straight one more time just to make sure. And it looks like everything's between about -2 and -3. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to jump out of Motec for a second. I'm going to go ahead and close this log. And now we're going to set our steering offset. And you want to set the steering offset to whatever it was showing up in Motec for the steering wheel angle. In our case, it was -2 about. Where the hell is the steering offset? There it is. So -2. Actually, we'll go -3 just for the hell of it. It don't have to be perfectly exact, but you want to get it relatively close. And then we're going to go out and we're going to drive it around the track here just to make sure that our wheel is centered down on the straightaways. And on the front straight, it looks pretty good for our steering wheels being centered. And it looks like we're in good shape for the back straight too, so looks like we got our steering offset set the way we need it to be, so we're going to jump off of the track back onto pit road. Take a stop here, and I'm going to get out and I'm going to go over to my checklist. Drag it over here so everybody can see it. And now that I've got the offset set, now our steering ratio I've already got set because I know what I like for that. And then there should be one here for steering offset. So we're going to go ahead and put OK next to the steering offset. And we can put caster on its own line, I suppose. Now the brake bias, I'm just going to leave that basically kind of where it's at. Actually make sure to see where it actually is. So let's go to the garage. And it's at 62.5. I think I want to move the brake bias. I think I'll leave it at 62.5 for now. And I'll just adjust it in the race using my button I've got mapped for brake bias. Alright, now that we got that done, and we got everything all marked off, the next thing on our checklist here is going to be caster, getting that set. This is one of the first things you want to set is your front get your caster set, because everything else on the truck is going to affect your caster setting. Now me, I like to start off with, I like to put as much caster into the truck as I can in the front end. Generally, I like to start off at about 10 degrees on the right front. And then I like to run 2 degrees of caster split. So that's going to put the left front at 8 degrees. And since I've got 8 on the left, 10 on the right, that gives me a total of 18 degrees of caster. And the higher you can make that caster total number, the more stable the truck is going to be going down the straightaway, and the quicker the wheel will self-center itself as you come off the corner. Now, caster split is basically the right front caster minus the left front caster, and that gives us 2, which is 2 degrees of split. And what caster split does is it makes the car pull in the direction of the side of the car that has the lower amount of caster. In our case, the 2 degrees of caster split would make this truck pull to the left, and it'll help it enter the corner better. Now that we got that set, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take a lap just to see how it feels coming into the corner, since we now have a different caster setting than what we started with. I just want to make sure the thing is diving in, not over diving into the corner on me, and it's actually going in where it feels good. And this setting is going to be more of a feel thing than anything else. Basically set it to what feels good to you. And as soon as I get off the track here, after I run a lap or two, I'll explain how to get this set right. And right now she feels pretty good coming into the corner. She's not dive bombing down into the corner when I'm turning in. So that 2 degrees of split actually feels pretty good. Give me a minute here, I'll go back to pit road. Actually what I'll do is I'll just stop and just reset to the pits. I ain't wasting time driving back in there. Because this setup stuff does take a while to do. Alright, we're back to the thing. I'm going to go back in the garage. And in my case, the caster setting that I put on here feels pretty good. And for most tracks, this is what I like to use for caster. Now, in my case, this is good. But in your case, it may not be. So what do we do if it ain't? Well, if it's diving in too much, where you turn the wheel and it just dive bombing into the corner on you, shooting toward the infield, that means you have too much split for caster. And to fix that, you're going to increase the split by working with just the left side only. Don't really mess with the right side. Once you got the right side set to 10, just leave it there. And the right side, or left side rather, what you would do is you would start increasing the caster to bring it closer to what the right side is. And I would go up maybe like 1 degree, 1.5 degrees, and that will give you a little bit less split and it won't dive as hard into the corner. If it's not diving hard enough into the corner, just go the other way. Just reduce the caster split even more. Instead of having 8, go down to like 7.5 or 7. And a 1 degree to a half a degree here makes a big difference. So don't make a real big change without testing it first. In my case, I like where this caster is set, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to my checklist, and I'm going to mark off the caster. And that's good. And we've already talked about brake bias, and I'm going to leave that at 62.5 for now, so I'm going to mark brake bias off as good. Next is going to be our front ARB. And on a track like Darlington, I like to run the ARB, to start off with, I like to run the ARB as high as I can, which is going to be 2.5 inches. And what the sway bar will do is, as you go into the corner, it will control how far the body rolls over to the right as you go into the corner. The stiffer the bar, the less the truck will roll. But it can also make the truck tight if you got the bar too big. Going to a slightly softer bar will make the truck turn in a little bit better and it won't be as tight. The only other major thing you got to really worry about with a real stiff sway bar is it can sometimes make the thing snap loose on you every once in a while. Because when you're turning in, you're going to have more wheel into it. If the front wheels grab or bite, the accent will come around on you and then you'll be in trouble. But I usually start at 2.5 and go from there. If it's too tight, I will back it off a little bit. Maybe down to 2.25 or 2 inches even, depending on how it feels and how much it's rolling over. And we'll check that in Motec a little bit later. Right now we're just going to leave the ARB at 2.5. And arm asymmetry, we will deal with that in a little bit. So we got the sway bar basically initially set. We may go through and fine tune it a little bit later, so we'll go ahead and put an OK next to the front ARB. The next one is going to be, we're going to go down to the back of the truck and we're going to work on our right truck arm mount for the rear suspension. And this is going to affect how the truck enters and exits the corner depending on which side of the truck you're working on. And right now, by default, it's starting me at the bottom on the right side. And I always do the right side first. Now keep in mind that this truck arm mount, when you adjust it, it's going to affect the ride height on whatever corner of the truck you're working on. I always start with the right side and just do one side at a time. So what we're going to do is we're going to note the ride height, which is 7190 or 7991, and we're going to move that down to the top. Click apply, and then reset our ride height back to 7191. Actually, I don't remember if it was. I got the memory capacity of a goldfish. Yep, 7191 is where it was. So go back to the top, apply 7191. Now you know why I have the checklist, so I don't forget nothing. And 7185 is about as close as we're going to get to it. And that's going to also mess our truck arm preload up. It's going to make it go outside of legal. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this back down. And the thing with the truck arm, whenever you make changes, it may mess this truck arm preload up. So what we're going to do is we're going to adjust it. And we want it to get as close to 0 as we can get it without having it be a negative number. And we're up a little too high right now. Negative, or 1.9 foot-pounds is probably as close to 0 as we're going to get. Yep. Other than that, we go negative. So we'll leave that where it's at, and then we'll click OK. Now we'll go over and we'll do the left side truck arm mount. And again, note your ride height, 7013. Come down here and go to the top, apply it, and reset the ride height back to 7013. Or as close as you can get it to 7013. And we got it right on the money. How about that? How often does that happen? And we need to reset our toe so it becomes legal, because it threw that all out of whack. We'll just zero that out for now. And we'll fine tune that later. Come on, you picky bastard. There it goes. Alright. Now that we got our truck arms mounts set, and we got our ride heights back to where they should be, let me explain kind of what the truck arm mount does. Now the truck arm mount basically controls how the rear end of the truck reacts in the corner. It controls your rear squat. When you're going into the corner, it controls how much the back of the truck squats down, and it also controls the rear steer to a point. And they work kind of like the track bars. The right side truck arm mount will affect the car on corner exit. The left side truck arm mount will affect corner entry. And the higher you are, the higher the hole is that you're in, the more the car will want to rotate. So for instance, on the right side, which we did first, we moved it to the top from the bottom. And what this will do is it's going to make the truck rotate more on corner exit. And then on the left side, we went from bottom to top. So what this change will do is it'll make the truck rotate more on corner entry and make it turn in a little bit better. And you can adjust that if you want to. I usually do that. Usually when I set these on, I usually set these to the top on almost every track I run, and it seems to work pretty good for me. But again, your mileage may vary. You may want to try the middle or the bottom one. That may actually feel better to you. The biggest thing about setup is it's all about how it feels. You want the setup to feel as comfortable as you can get it to feel. Because if it's not comfortable, you're not going to ever push it. And if you don't push it, you're never going to be fast. That's the secret to a fast setup, is making it comfortable to where you've got the confidence to actually push it without feeling like you're going to loop it around or wreck it. That's the most important, one of the most important things. Okay, so now we got our truck arm mount set. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to set my track bars. And I always start off with 10 on the track bars on both sides, because I want to keep my track bar level. And the track bars, kind of like the truck arm mounts, kind of control how the rear end of the truck acts in the corner. The right side is going to affect, or passenger side of the truck is going to affect your corner exit, just like the truck arm mount does. And the driver's side is going to affect your corner entry. Again, just like the truck arm. The higher the truck bar, the more the truck is going to rotate or slide. Actually, it won't rotate with the track bar. It will actually slide. So the higher the number, the more the less traction that tire is going to have, and the more likely it's going to slip as you're coming into the corner or coming off the corner. Now for the left side track bar, the higher that number again, and this is going to be primarily when you're braking, coming into the corner, or off throttle. It's going to, the higher the number, the more likely the ass end is going to slide as you're coming in. On the right side, it's going to be the exact opposite. The higher the number, the more the ass end is going to want to slide coming off the corner. Alright, now that we've got the track bars set to our initial starting point, we're going to go ahead and go back to our checklist here and find our track bars, and we're going to put OK next to those because we got those initially set. Now you may have to adjust your track bars, take it out and drive it a little bit and find out if the track bar feels good. If it feels like it's sliding around the corner, like it has no grip, then lower your track bar on whatever side that you're having the problem with. If it's, like I said, if it's sliding on entry, lower your left side track bar. If it's sliding on exit, lower the right side track bar. And I generally like to try to adjust my, again, I like to try to keep my track bars as even as I can. I don't want any track bar split or rake, because these track bars tend to like to be level. Or at least that's my experience with them. Again, your mileage may vary. Go out and don't be afraid to experiment, because you may stumble on something that works real good for you that where my setting may not. And another thing about setup, you always build a setup to fit you as the driver. Build it to fit your driving style. Don't just use my settings because they may be fast or look fast in testing. Just because it's fast for me don't mean it's going to be fast for you, because hell, there's a lot of fast setups out there that I've driven that I can't even drive. So it's going to be all about feel. Now we got our track bar set. Our next step is we're going to work on our spring package. Now I like to start off with a pretty interesting spring package. Now this iracing setup, and I noticed this particularly at Dover last week, or this week rather, that iracing uses way too soft a spring in the left rear, and it makes the car a little bit loose on exit, or can. It could also make it loose on entry, because basically your left rear spring controls the car on entry as far as how much it rotates on entry. The softer the spring, the more it's going to rotate. The stiffer the spring, the less it'll rotate on entry. And I found through experimentation and testing, I like about a 1,300 pound spring package. And what do I mean by that? Your spring package is basically your left rear spring plus your right rear spring. Add the two together and that's your spring package. In this case, the default setup would have a 1,325 pound spring package, which is actually fairly close, as I personally like a 1,300. But the thing is, the biggest problem with this one is it's not balanced. The left side is way higher than the right, and I like to keep my rear springs as balanced as I can. It just makes it easier for me, and it feels better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise my left rear spring to 650 pounds. Note my ride height, which is 70/12. Adjust it. Oh, I'm going to go the other way. $70.15, that's close enough. That'll work for me. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the right side. I'm going to take the right side down to 650. And this gives me my 1,300 pound spring package that seems to work real good for me most everywhere. Or at least that does for me. Again, your mileage may vary. And I'll explain a little bit more about how to find out what's the best spring package for you here in just a second, as soon as I get my ride height set. And unfortunately I didn't look at my ride height before I changed it, so I'm going to have to go back to the original setup. And then unfortunately I screwed everything all up, so I got to go back and redo everything. So top, cancel, yes. 79.91, top, apply. Get her down to 70.91. $70.92 close enough. Do our left side, top, 69.50. $69.50, right on the money. Now, I usually notice the left side ride height usually comes back to about where it was when you make a change, once you adjust it. But it's something that they don't always. And I don't know why this screws the the towing up so much on the back end, but so we're going to zero out our toe. That way everybody's happy. Where's zero? There's zero. Same on the right side, left side rather. No, there's camber. We'll mess with the rear camber in a minute. Right now we just want to make sure we get our toe zeroed out. So with camber we're not going to worry about right yet because we're not to that point yet. So, but our truck arm preload, we need to get that back down to as close to zero as possible without going negative. All right, 3.4 foot-pounds. That's close enough. Now where we were at before is we adjusted our spring package. So 69.52 it looks like. So we'll go up to 650. 69.52 and set that. $69.56 was close enough. And this time I'm going to take note of my ride height, 70.92. Take the right side down to 650. Apply 70.92. Whoop, other way. $71 or too high. Looks like the 70.84 is about as close as we can get, so we'll apply that. Now we have our basic starter spring package installed, and this one is where I usually leave it because it works pretty good for me. But again, go out and test it. Now, if this one doesn't feel good, the best way to go is I always start off with you never want to go below about a 600-pound spring on the left rear. Anything lower than that, the car is going to not feel good and it's going to be loose, particularly on entry. And then the right rear, I usually try to stay no more than about, I try not to take the right rear more than about 30% higher than whatever it's set at. So in this case, 650-pound spring, I wouldn't go much above about a 950 to maybe 1,000-pound at most if I have to adjust that spring to get it to turn more coming out of the corner. Now, like I said, your left rear spring is going to control your entry. And the lower the spring rate, the more the car is going to rotate coming into the corner, particularly just right before the apex. Now, your right rear spring is going to control how the car rotates coming off the corner. And the higher the spring, the more it's going to rotate or drive itself around. I'm not talking sliding around unless you're way off on the spring rate. And if you're high enough to where it's getting to rotate enough to make it actually slide, your spring is way too stiff. But this gives us our 1,300-pound spring package, basically 650 plus 650 is 1,300 pounds. And that's a pretty good feel. That feels pretty good to me when I tested it. And right now we got that set, so what we're going to do next is we made some changes, and we notice up here our preload is now way off. When I'm building a setup, I like to keep my preload down at 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down until I get the preload back to 0. That way it's not affecting anything else while we're building our setup. And it throws our right height off a little bit, so it's a little too high, so we got to bounce it down. Come on, get down, get down, get down, get down, down, down. Come on, you stubborn bastard. Alright, now we got an issue here that we have to figure out, and this is where camber comes into play. Right now it's saying that the thing's too high, but we can't get it to go down any lower without it jumping to saying too low. Or maybe it did. Okay, the right side's too low, so let's drop that down. Or jump that back up. Alright, now that we've got this issue where we're having trouble getting our right heights to come back, we're going to have to fine-tune our front right height, and I'm going to use camber to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the camber just enough to get the thing to pass tech. Oh, come on, down, 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 down. I'm in the wrong line to get on the camber. Alright, which way is the one we need to go? Just max the thing out and see what it does to the right height. Now it says it's too damn low. Alright, so we'll drop that down 1.5 degrees approximately. Still too low. This is the most frustrating part about building a setup, is when stuff goes out of spec and it gets hard to get back into spec. And it's really pissing me off. There, now we finally got them to where they need to be. And that's the hardest part, is getting your right heights back to where they were before and still have it past tech. And you may have to monkey around with shit like camber, at least on the left front, and your spring perch offsets to at least get it to past tech or get it as close as it was before. Right now we're just going to focus on getting the thing to basically past tech. We will set our right heights later. And get our back as close to 0. Whoop, too far. Okay, what the hell is it not liking now? Too high again. Too low. There, now everybody's happy. That thing sucks. I hate trying to deal with right heights that don't want to behave themselves. And my link slack has got a little bit of stuff in it, and I want to get rid of that. I want to make that to where it's basically back to 0. Apply it. Make sure everything's still happy, and it looks to be, so our track bar is back to 10. Adjust our truck arm preload. And our caster changed on us as well, so we gotta drop that back to 10. 8 still good. 0 out our toe. Okay, everybody looks happy. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to look at our cross weight and see exactly where we're sitting with our cross weight to start with. I just want to get an idea of where we're at. Alright, everything is back to being happy and where we want it to be. And we were basically working on our springs. So we got our spring package initially set. And I explained how to set your spring. So what we're going to do is we'll take it out right now and we're going to drive it just to see how it feels right now with the springs, with the changes we've made, and compare it to how it was the first run. When you're going out and doing these runs, give your truck or car or whatever you're building this on, in this case it's the truck because a lot of this stuff will apply to the Xfinity car as well, give the tires about a lap or a couple laps to get up to temperature and for the pressures to come up, because you'll be amazed how much it can change once the tires warm up. Damn. And I'm liking the way it feels on entry. It's feeling pretty good, so my left rear spring's about where I want it. And like I said, if you're having trouble getting it to turn in, like it doesn't want to turn as good, soften the left rear spring. And then retry it and see if it feels good.
1.03. Pretty good that, my man. Keep it up.
And my exit feels pretty good too. So I'm actually happy with this rear spring set. And if it's not turning good for you coming out of the corner, like it's wanting to push up and kind of like do this number where it comes up and hits the wall, and I did that intentionally to kind of show you. Stiffen the right rear spring to make it rotate more coming out of the corner. But for me, this actually feels pretty good. So I'm going to leave the spring package, the springs, at least the rear springs alone. So I've got the rear springs where I want them. Go back to the pits. Go to our checklist, and our rear springs are okay. Alright, now we got our springs set, and we can actually drive the thing around the track and not hit nothing, except for when I did that on purpose. We're ready to move on to, it looks like camber is the next thing on our list. Okay, so what is camber? Now camber is the angle of your front wheel. It's actually a front end alignment angle. And basically it's the angle of the tire in relation to the center line of the car when you're looking at it from the top of the tire, looking down on it straight on. If the top of the tire is tilting towards the center of the car, that's negative camber. If it's tilting away from the center of the car, that's positive camber. And what camber does is it ensures that the contact patch of your tire, it has as much of it in contact with the racetrack as possible. So when you're going down the track in a straightaway, you want this to have as close to zero camber as you can when you're on the straightaway. But when you go into the corner, because of the way the suspension geometry works, and that weight transfers to the right front and the suspension compresses, it will change that camber. So we need to compensate for that in our camber setting. And on most cars, it's going to have about a 2 to 2.5 to 3 degree change when you go into the corner, depending kind of on what your caster's set at. So what we're going to do is go back into the garage, and we're going to throw our initial camber setting on it. So go to the garage, go to our chassis, and we're going to do the right front camber first. Actually, I'm going to do right front. We're going to set that to -2.5. That's always a good starting point. Apply that. And watch your ride heights because they may change. Basically, when I'm adjusting camber, I only change the ride heights after adjusting camber if it doesn't pass tech, and I just bring it back up enough to pass tech. So we're at 2.6 negative on the right front. For the rear, the change is usually about 1.5 degrees. And so on the right rear, we're going to set this to -1.5. Alright, and then on the left rear, we're going to set the left side to +1.5. The goal here is that when we go into the corner, in the chassis rolls, the suspension compresses. Our goal here is to get the tire 0 degrees when we're in the middle of the corner, so it's perfectly flat against the track and wears evenly. That way we get the maximum amount of grip out of it, and at the same time we make sure we get the most life out of our tire. Now before we go out, I'm going to make some adjustments to my shocks. I want to set my shocks to my baseline setting, which is going to be all 5s on everything. We'll fine tune these later, but I want to build the setup basically around a baseline shocks package, which is going to again be all 5s. And then we'll fine tune the rest of it. Once we get the rest of the setup most of the way there, we will fine tune it with our shocks. Just make sure that we got everything set here. 5s. Okay, there's one that needs to go back to 5. This one needs to go up to 5. 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 And it looks like we got everybody, so now we've got our baseline shock package in place. We've got a baseline camber package, or did have until it moved on us. So set that all back, make sure everything's still happy and in good shape. Our track bars are the same. Our preload actually can come down a little bit because it's a little high. Make sure our casters didn't change, because sometimes they will when you're changing it, when you're adjusting camber. It can make your casters jump. And our preload is too high again, so drop that back. And this preload will, as you're messing with the setup, will jump around. And anytime you make a change, always zero out your preload. We'll use the preload later when we go to set our roll center, but that'll be a little bit further on down the road. Okay, so we got everything basically where we want it. We should be able to take this thing out and drive it. And we want to run about 20 laps so we can get some wear in the tires, so we can see how close our cambers are and fine tune them if we need it. And to do that, to make sure I get the right number of laps, because this thing should going to have number or laps showing up. It says we've done 8 laps so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out of here real quick. And then reload the test session. I'm going to pause it while it loads, and then we'll be back in just a second. Alright, now that we're back into the session here, I'm going to jump back in the garage, just make sure nothing changed on us while we were reloading the sim. Make sure that our caster's where we want it. Make sure our cambers are where we set them to. because sometimes this stuff likes to change when you load everything. The truck arm preload is good. Our sway bar preload is good. Everybody's where he should be, and everybody's happy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go out and I'm going to run about 20 laps. And pause it while I'm doing that, because you don't need to sit there and watch me drive around. And then I'll come back and we'll come back and we'll take a look at our cambers and see how close we are. Okay, we're back here in the garage area. I just went out and ran what was going to be 20 laps, but I kind of zoned out because it is 5 o'clock in the morning, and ended up running 25 by mistake, but that's no big deal. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at our tire wear and see how close our cambers are. And if our cambers are right, we're going to have basically even wear across the tread face of the tire, and our temperatures are going to be relatively uniform. And we're going to look at our right front first, and based on our wear, we got 95, 94, 95. So our tire wear for the cambers looks really good. This 94 in the center is probably more due to air pressure than camber. And then our tire temperatures, we have 252, 246, 257 on our right front, which means that our cambers actually are looking, that camber that we set at -2.5 is almost right on the money. I like that. I like those numbers really pretty good. Our right rear, on the other hand, also looks real good. We got 98, 98, 98, so we're wearing evenly. And we got a 210, a 206, and a 207. So our tire temperature across the rear tire is relatively uniform as well. And that means that our camber is actually set right on the right rear. Our left rear, 98, 98, 99. We might have a little bit of an adjustment we might have to make on the left rear rather, because we are wearing the outside of the edge of the tire just a little bit more than the rest of the tire. So this tire actually has a little bit too much camber in it. And our temperatures are kind of showing that a little bit. So we're wearing the inside edge a little more than the outside edge in the middle, which means we need to make the left rear a little bit more positive. So we're going to go up to a 1.6 on the left rear, and that should probably put us pretty close to being right. Wait for everything to jump through and apply. Make sure our preload, truck arm preload is right. And 1.1 is as close to 0 as we can get without going negative. Everybody's ride height looks happy. Camber looks or caster looks happy. It didn't change. Our toe is still 0. And our preload is still good. And then since we were out running for several laps, I ran 25 laps. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to look to see what my balance is like on the truck, particularly front to rear balance. This would be our, we'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to go through here and go to my checklist, maybe, and I'm going to mark off our cambers. So our right front camber is okay. Right rear camber is alright. So basically all of our cambers are good, so we can put okay next to cambers. And according to our cheat sheet, our next thing that we're going to work on is going to be our ballast forward or nose weight. And that's what I was getting ready to talk about right before I remembered that we needed to mark off our cambers. So we're going to go back to iracing. And we want to see how much weight balance we have, and that's going to be based on the tire wear of the right or the left front tire versus the left rear tire. And the side of the car that has the more weight on it is going to wear that tire faster. So if the front end has got too much weight or you got more weight on it than the rear, the fronts are going to wear faster and they're going to be hotter. The same is true if the rear weight is too far, the rears will wear faster. In our case, it looks like our front tires might be wearing a little bit faster than our rear tires. And that's an indication that our nose weight is too heavy. We need to get some of that weight moved from the front to the back. And to do that, we're going to go up here to our forward ballast. Now this 12-inch thing, completely forget about it. Don't even worry about the 12-inch thing. That's just a reference only. The number that's important that we're going to need to pay attention to is this nose weight percentage. That's the most important one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this ballast forward. Basically, as the number gets smaller, we're moving the weight rearward in the car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this back, apply it, and see what our nose weight does. And I want to get this down to about 51.5, which means we're pretty much just about there now. So we'll go just a couple more clicks, and yet 51.5. Note the ride height before it adjusts. Looks like 49, 53, 50, 65. Biggest thing is make sure that the ride heights are still passing tech once you make that adjustment. So we got 51.5 for our nose weight, and now we're ready to look at our tire wear again and see what our cross weight looks like. Our cross weight is looking like, again, our front tire, right front cross weight is going to be measured by our right front tire wear in temperature versus our right rear. In this case, we got 94, 95 on the, or we got 94 on the right front, 98 on the right rear of how much tread we have left. So it looks like we're burning off the right front. And to fix that, we're going to adjust our cross weight. We're going to take weight off of the right front and move it to the right rear. And to do that, we're going to go over here to our spring perches. And we're going to go up here, before we do that, we're going to go up here and look at our actual cross weight percentages. And right now our cross weight's at 59.7, which is way too high. And when I'm adjusting my cross weight, I want to get this down to around 52, 50, between 52 and 50, yeah, 52.5%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, before we do that, we're going to zero out our link slack. There we go, got that taken care of. So we need to get this cross weight down to about 52.5 just to just start off with. And to do that, we're going to adjust our spring perches. We're going to go up on the right rear, down on the left rear. Come up to the top. We're going to go up on the left front, down on the right front. And we're going to do that while we watch, as we make those adjustments, try to get this to where we can reach our arrows and still be able to see our cross weight. And we're going to keep doing this until we get this down to about 52.5. So up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. You get the idea. Up, down, up, down. It looks like we've got quite a ways to go too, so we'll go ahead and get this set down to about 52.5. Boy, she's got a long damn ways to go, don't she? This is another one of the things that makes that building a setup taking so long is sometimes these adjustments you got to go quite a ways before you get to where you want to be. Now you might be noticing that this thing is actually going illegal as far as ride height, and it's starting to blink in red. That's not so big of a deal because as we're adjusting it, we're bringing it back up. And we're down to 54.8, so we're getting closer. Go up a little bit more on that. So you see if it goes back legal, and drop that, and it drops it back too low again, but that's no big deal. We'll fix that here in a second. And basically by adjusting the cross weight, we're kind of fine-tuning what our spring package is. Basically we're putting preload on the springs to make them slightly stiffer. Alright, 51.9, we went too far, so we got to go the other way now. So down, up, down. Okay, 52.2, up, down, up. Now, okay, now we're at our 52.5. Our link slack has changed, so we got to move that back down to 0. Apply. Go through and check all of our other settings. Our camber changed, so we got to drop that back to 2.5. Apply. Our caster also changed back to 10 and 8. Now, left front caster we don't really worry, or left front camber we don't really worry about, because the left front wheel on an oval car doesn't really do anything except keep the front of the car from dragging on the ground. It just holds the car up. As far as traction goes and handling goes, the left front doesn't really do all that much. It does kind of help turn the center of the corner. So if you need to get it to turn more in the center of the corner, because if it's tight in the center of the corner, max out that left front camber, and that'll usually make it turn a little bit better. But I usually just leave it whatever default is, and then just use camber to fine-tune my ride heights, as you saw me try to do earlier. So 52.6, 8, 10, toe is still 0, 52.6, which means we got to go up just at one more click on the right rear as soon as I find it. Up. 52.5, 116, 016. Okay, that's good. Two and a half rear cambers. Take that back up to 1.5. 1.5 on the left rear, and our truck arm preload is now too low, so too high, so we got to drop that back down. And that's back to where it's supposed to be. And our cross weight jumped down again, so we got to go back up one more click. Okay, maybe down one more click. I think I went the wrong direction. Bump, bump, up, other way. We are going the right way. Well, somebody's being picky. Come on, get to where you want. Get to where you want to live. Well, I'm gonna be picky as fuck, ain't it? Come on, give me the 52.5. There we go. Now we're where we want to be. 2.5. Come on, give me back to 2.5. 8. And then this is the tedious part. When the shit changes on you, you got to put it all back how it was. All right, so goddamn thing. 52.6, 52.7, 52.5. fly. Okay, stay put. Don't move. Nothing move. Alright, we're good to go. Now we're going to go out and run another 25 or another 20 laps in my case. Probably 25 because I'll zone off with the wheel again while I'm driving. And then we'll come back in and we'll see how we're sitting on our tire wear. So we're going to click on test. And I'm going to put you guys on a pause so you don't have to sit there and just watch me turn laps. Because that's no fun. Unless I hit something and wreck, and then that could be hilarious. But we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, I just went out and ran another 20 laps. And as I was driving it for that 20 laps, I noticed the car had tightened up since we started building the setup. And of course, we can definitely see it in the tire wear. The tire wear is telling us the car is tight because our right front is being used up more than our right rear. But why is that, you might ask yourself? We've been basically loosening the car up as we were adjusting our cross weight. Well, a couple of things have happened since I went out to start running it. If you notice in the background, it's gotten dark, which means the track is starting to cool down. That will generally tighten the car up as the track gets colder. And without the sun hitting it anymore, the track is going to be losing temperature rapidly. And I can't remember what track temperature was when we started, but currently it is down to where did my temperature go? The track's down to 70 degrees, and I think it was higher than that when we started. And another thing I noticed when I was driving it, I could hear the front splitter hitting the track. And when the front splitter is hitting the track, it can make the car tight because the front wheels aren't hitting the ground properly. We'll check that here in just a second or two. But the first thing we're going to do is we'll go back in and we're going to look at our tire wear. And as soon as I get back to the garage, pop out of here. And I see that our tire wear is actually pretty close now. We're within 2%, which is, I generally would leave it basically here. 2% is kind of about where I like to have, is about a 2% difference between the right front and the right rear as far as our cross weight goes. But our forward ballast weight, we're still getting more wear on the left front than we are the left rear. So our ballast looks like it might be off a little bit yet. So we're going to go back up here and we're going to drop our ballast back from 52%. We're going to come down to 50%. Nope, 50.9. Actually, we'll go 50. Actually, let's go down to the total 50. Or 50.7. 50.5. Actually, we'll leave it at 50.5 for now and see what our tire wear looks like after another 20 lap run. But we're going to leave our cross weight alone for right now and just kind of focus on just our forward ballast and try to get our front and rear tires to balance out first on the left side. And then we'll come back and we'll work a little bit more on our right sides. So we got to go back and readjust our camber or casters because they moved on us. Make sure our cambers are set. Make sure we didn't get any preload. Our toe is still good. Our rear cambers are still good. And our preload is good. So now we've got basically a little bit more information to work with here. Since I was hearing the splitter hit, it's probably likely hitting the ground. That's contributing to the reason the car is probably tight, in addition to being a cooler track now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to make sure that my telemetry folder is empty, which it's not. So I'm going to clear that up, make sure I ain't got any files in there that can mess me up. And I'm going to go back into iracing. Hit the test button, turn telemetry on, and right now we're only going to go out and run about 3 or 4 laps, because that's all we really need to run to find out what I need to find out. Even though we loosened it up, the truck got to where it felt like it was getting tight on me, and I could hear the splitter hitting, and that's what the splitter hitting is a major contributor to a car getting tight on you, especially when it just happens out of the blue or without really any explanation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out here and I'm going to get some telemetry data so I can see exactly what our front splitter is doing as far as whether it's hitting the track or not, because I can actually hear it right now. Particularly through 1 and 2. I can kind of hear it a little bit in 4, but I really hear it in 1 and 2.
31, 26, 3, 7.
Run one more lap. Let's get a little bit of heat in the tires, get the tire pressures up. See if we get a little more ground clearance. All right, we'll go ahead and bring her on in. And we'll look at the telemetry and see if our splitter's contributing to our tight condition. And I believe it might be, just from what I'm hearing driving around the track. Yeah, make sure I turned telemetry off. Did I? No, I didn't. Of course not. I never do. I always forget to turn it off. All right, go back to Motec. This is a fine Motec. Where the hell did it go? Yeah, we closed out Motec before, I forgot. So let's go to our thing here, Darlington. And we're going to go over here to Arrow. And just as I thought, we are hitting the splitter. So the front end is too low. And where is it actually hitting it? It looks like it's hitting in the straightaway going into turn. It's hitting in the straightaway for sure. At the lowest point. Straightaway turn 1. I'm trying to see if I can find where it's hitting in turn 2. This is the second lap. And boy, she is way underground here. This white line basically right here represents the surface of the racetrack. And the green line is the bottom of the splitter. If this green line goes below the white line, it means the truck is actually sitting on the splitter instead of the front tires. And that's why we're tight. A big contributor to why we're tight. Now that we've loosened the car up by adding crossweight to it, when we fix this splitter problem, the truck will probably be loose. So let's go ahead and try to fix that splitter problem. So we've got to get it to come up off the ground about 6/10 of an inch. So let's go ahead and get back to the garage and we'll take a look. First of all, I'm going to dump this file and then go to our telemetry folder and clear that out so when I come back out to retest, I don't have to worry about running multiple files. So we're going to go back in the garage. And we know we're about a ½ inch too low on the front. As far as the splitter dragging. And the reason that is because the front end is not allowing the springs, the way the springs are set in the front end right now, they're not allowing the front end to drop because the springs are likely coil binding. And what coil bind is, I'm going to explain coil binding here real quick. When you compress a spring, a coil spring, the further you compress it, eventually the coils will come into contact with each other and bind up. And once that happens, the spring can no longer compress, and it stops the downward movement of the front suspension. It acts kind of like a bump stop, or a generic bump stop. In our case, our springs are probably not coil binding at all because our front spring is too stiff. We've got a 350-pound spring in the left front, and that's a little on the stiff side. And because that spring is so stiff, it's not coil binding. So what we're going to do, and one thing about spring rates, is the stiffer the spring, the more space there is between the coils, and the thicker the wire is. That makes up the coil of the spring. And since there's so much space between the coils, the spring has a lot of room to travel before it actually hits the coils and binds up and stops moving. So what we need to do here to fix that coil bind issue, or fix that splitter hitting issue, is we need to get this left front spring to coil bind. To do that, we need to go to a softer spring, which has less space between the coils, so therefore it can't compress as far before they hit each other and stop. So we're going to go from a 350 down as much as it needs to come down, or come up rather. We're going to go down to a 330 from the 350. Now to right height 4811, apply, readjust. That's as close as it gets. Apply, reset our caster. That's still good on that one. Adjust our link slack to zero it out. Check our cambers. Left front we don't really care about. Right front's good. Right rear is good. Left rear looks good. And adjust our truck arm preload back to... Boy, there's a lot of variance there. That should... Oh, that's why, because I wasn't negative. That's why. I thought it went negative. I thought it was negative 3.7, not positive 3.7. So anyway, negative, positive. We're good there. So now we made that change in the front spring. I'm going to go ahead, double check to make sure I deleted my telemetry information. Make sure I got an empty telemetry folder. Now I'm going to jump back in, turn telemetry back on, go out and run another couple more laps. And I expect this thing to not be as tight, and it may actually want to spin out and be loose on me. Because now the front end's going to bite. Because we actually got the front tires sitting on the ground if the coil binds enough to get it up off the ground. Boy, she definitely I can definitely feel she's turning better. And she's not going up and smacking the wall coming out of turn 2 like she was before on me in the last run. Because that damn thing would walk right up the racetrack and bam, into the right front corner into the wall and go. Because the front tires were actually off the ground and it wasn't turning.
7, 3, 6.
And that is something I normally check before I even start working on getting a setup build or start to do anything, is I'll take it out and run a few laps, and I'll check the front right height to see if the splitter's hitting, and I don't remember if I did that. I must not have because we're hitting now.
31.192.
But we've also made some changes to the truck which could have affected that too. Okay, she's not driving too bad right now. We got it to where it's actually will turn in the corner and isn't plowing the racetrack like a dump truck. And we'll go one more lap and then we'll see if our splitter's still on the ground or see if we get it fixed. Bring her on down and see if we got the splitter off the ground. Whenever you make changes to your vehicle when you're doing a setup, always go through and verify that your change is taken and doing what you want it to do. Whoop, forgot to turn off telemetry again, damn it. Okay, now telemetry's off, we're out of the truck, back to the garage. Of course, we don't need to be in the garage to check this. We got to go into Motec. Open our log file that we just took. And we still are about a ½ inch too low. But it is better than it was because we were before about 0.6 inches too low. And now we're only, and on the right front we still are. So we got to raise it up a little bit more. So we're going to go back to our garage. And we'll go down from a 330 down to a 320. 4804. And this is close as it gets. Okay, preload's good. Link slack's good. Caster's good, camber's good, tow's good. Everybody's where it's supposed to live, and everybody looks like it's happy. So double check our truck on preload. Yep, everybody was happy. So now we're gonna go out and run a couple more laps and come back in and check again. But we gotta get rid of our telemetry files. It's Motec still open, so we got to close Motec, delete the files. Anyway, one that decided not to jump or not to go away, so get rid of him. Now let's see if we got some track clearance. See if we got some splitter clearance now. When building a setup, the biggest thing is when you find something wrong and you got to fix it, go in, make your change that you got to do to get it to where you need it to be, or do what you want it to do, and then always go out and re-verify and check to make sure that your change worked or took. Because we went through and we adjusted that spring, come back out, and although it felt good on the truck, it wasn't pushing for me no more. It still wasn't right. Never guess, always check. Still sounds like it's trying to hit. But it ain't driving like it's hitting. It might be just high enough now that the tires are actually getting some bite, but it's still low enough you can hear it scraping the pavement. And if that's all it's doing is just a light, quick brush across the pavement and is actually not sitting on the pavement, that's all right. We can live with that. But we'll find out for sure here in just a minute or so. Alright, we just turned 4 laps. That should be enough to tell us what we need to know. Tell us if we got it. Back up off the track enough to make us happy. Alright, we're back to pit road. Turn off telemetry. Bounce it back into Motec. Open. And it's stuff like this is where Motec really comes in handy. Okay, we're better than we were, but we're still too low. So we'll do one more option on the spring. Go to the garage. Right now we're now at a 320. Let's drop her down to a 310. 4820. That's probably as close as it gets there. And make sure everybody's still happy. Caster's happy, caster's happy, toe is happy, camber's happy. Camber's happy, camber's happy, toe is happy. Trucker and preload's happy. Alright, everybody's happy. Let's go out and, or everybody appears to be happy as far as we can tell right now. So let's close that. Go back to Motec. Close that file so we can clear out our telemetry folder. Select all, delete. And another couple laps. And I'll go here just as soon as I light my cigarette. And if there's kids watching, don't ever start smoking. It's a nasty habit, and once you get on them, you can't get off it. That's a pain in the ass. I'm such a bad influence, I know it. But I do have this video marked as not for kids, so... But still, in case there are any watching, don't ever start smoking. It's a bad habit, and once you're on it, you can't get off of it easy. Don't forget to turn telemetry back on. This is why we're out here, is to try to figure out what's going on with that front splitter, make sure it's not hitting. And with telemetry off, we're not going to ever find out, so... Don't forget to turn telemetry on when you go back out to test. Now the problem with this is right now, I just thought of, if we're still scraping, we're kind of almost out of options because we're on the softest spring that we can run in the left front. So if we're still scraping or scraping really badly like we were, we're as coil bound as we can get it, because we can't get any softer spring than a 310. She's actually driving not too bad right now. I'm actually kind of liking the way it's driving. And this is not my best track. I usually struggle with this track, particularly with this curved corner right here. I always bang that wall on the exit. So if you see me hit that wall, it's not likely the setup causing it, but more the driver, because this track and I just do not get along very well together.
30 plus gate, 5, 5.
We'll drop in and onto pit road. 6 laps, we should be enough to figure out where we're at. So come down pit road, stop, turn off the telemetry, back to Motec, open our file, and survey said we're a lot better than we were. We're still a little low though, but only thing we can do now is work with the spring perches and raise it up. And we might be able to bring it up a little bit higher than this, but so let's go ahead and do that. So we're right now about 1/4 of an inch too low, which is way better than where we started from. So let's go back to this. And where the hell is my iracing? It's on this. I just went past it, didn't I? There it is. So let's go to the garage. Oh. Go to the chassis. And now we're going to start raising the front end by raising the spring perch offsets evenly on both sides. 1 click on left, 1 click on right. But before we do that, we're going to cancel, go back to where we were. And note what our front right hit is, particularly on the left front. And right now it's 48.26. So go up 1, up 1, up 1, up 1. Up, I hit the spring. Damn it. Okay, 48.26. Up 1, up 1. Up 1, up 1 more. That we might now be high enough. So let's go ahead and attach or apply it. Make sure everybody's still happy. Our camber or caster jumped on both sides, so we'll put that back where it was. Toe in looks good. Our cambers look good in the back. Our toe in the back is good. Our truck arm preload is good. We have no roll bar preload, and our link slack looks good. So everybody right now looks happy. Let's go out and see if we got this thing up off the ground finally. Where in the hell is my Motec? I gotta close that file. Clear my folder out. Alright, let's go out and buzz another lap or two. Telemetry on, don't forget to do that. Now, one thing I'll tell you about building setups, when you start to figure it out and you actually start to see your truck improving as you start tweaking with the setups, and that I find it's actually kind of fun. It's actually almost more fun than the actual racing itself. because it's something that actually requires you to think. You just can't go in there and just blindly poke at stuff and hope it works. You actually got kind of a thought process behind it in order to get where you want it to be. And of course, don't be afraid to experiment with stuff. Don't just do it. Just don't set yours up exactly like mine just because it looks like mine's working. Play around with things, but before you make any major changes, always save your setup so that if you don't like the change, it's easy to go back and only change one thing at a time. So if you change more than one thing at a time, you don't know what change actually made it better or worse if it got worse. Alright, we're lap 4. We'll go one more lap and that hopefully should help us. I don't really hear it hitting no more, so we might have got it. I got a little loose there too, which is the first time that's happened. And that's a promising sign. When she gets loose in the corner like that after it's been pushing, that's a good sign you figured out what was causing the push and fixed it. Alright, turn telemetry off. We'll go back into Motec. Open. Survey says. Alright, we got one spot that's still a little too low, but he's just a little bit too low. We could probably go up a little bit more on the spring perches and be fine. So let's go back to the garage. We're about 16th of an, we're about 16th, or what was it? I don't even remember. God, I hate having short memory. So it looks like we're 16 thousandths. Or it looks like 16 hundredths, 160 thousandths too low. 0.16. So let's go back to the garage and see what our left front looks like. Where did it go? We're at 49.21, so let's go up. We were at 49.21, 49.51. So that puts us 0.3, or that puts us 30 thousandths of an inch higher than we were. We'll go up one more on the right side just to keep our cross weight right. Link slack zeroed. Camber looks good. Camber don't care on that one. Toe looks good. Caster looks good. Camber on the rears look good. Rear toe is good. Truck arm, we have to. Now it's good. Done. Get rid of our log. Alright, those are deleted, so let's go back into the thing. Hit test. Telemetry on. Now when you're doing stuff like the front right height and splitter clearance, you don't have to go out and run 20-25 laps like you do with camber and crossweight adjustments and balance adjustments, because you're pretty much going to know right away whether it's fixed or not in telemetry. But when you make the setups that are, or the adjustments that affect like the tire wear, those can take about 20-25 laps to actually show up to where you can see it. Whoa, she's loose. I figured it was going to do that. As soon as we get that splitter to where it's not hitting the ground anymore. Now that front end is biting, and since we loosened it, since we put so much cross weight into it, now she's wanting to spin on the corner. We'll fix that so as soon as we verify that we got the splitter fixed.
24, 3, 8.
As I said, when that splitter's dragging, that's the major cause of a car getting real tight and not wanting to turn. Because if the front wheels aren't on the ground, they can't do nothing. They ain't gonna. You turn that steering wheel until you hit the lock, and the damn thing ain't gonna turn, and it's just gonna plow like a dump truck until you can get the tires back on the ground by getting the splitter off the track. And lately I've noticed that a lot of the iRacing fixed setups have the front end set too damn low, and it's bottoming out, which makes them tighter than shit, and you can't drive them. Or at least I can't. I don't know if they set them up like that to make them tighter on purpose so that it's easier for newer people to drive the things, because a tight car is always easier to drive for a newer driver than a loose car. I don't know who's building these setups, but to let it get by with that, where you got the damn splitter hitting the ground and making it push, that's just not right. And that could be why they have that left front spring so soft, so the son of a bitch will turn it. Because if they didn't have it so soft, it would probably turn it all. And where are we at on our splitter? Go to our thing. Open. Alright, now we're about right where we want it to be. It's actually 0.01 inches above the racetrack at its lowest point, at least in the center. The left side looks good. Right side's a little low, but we can fix it. We'll fix that later. Right now we got to fix it. Now that we got the tight problem fixed with the splitter hitting, now it's loose, so we got to fix that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back. We're going to close out of Motec for the moment. Go back in the garage. Our cross weight is 52.9. And that might be why we're loose now. So now we're going to go through here and tighten it up with cross weight. So we're 52.9, we're going to go 52.3, 53.2, 53.3, 54 or 53.2, 53.5, 53.7. We'll take it up to 53.8, 53.9, or 54. Adjust our link slack. Now hopefully it won't spin out. Camber looks good. Camber, that one we don't care. That one's good. Caster looks good. Preloads look good. Link slack's good. Right rear camber is a little off, so we'll set that back where we had it, 1.5. Set this back to 1.5 because that's now off. Apply, and everybody looks happy. So let's go out and run 20 laps again and see what our cross weight looks like. now that we got everything fixed, we're not pushing because of a dragging splitter. So I'm going to go over here, pause the recording, run my 20 laps, and we'll be back. Alright, I'm back after another 20 lap run here. And let's see what's shaking out now. Before, when I went out, I was tight. And then we got the splitter fixed, and then she's loose on me, and I tightened it up before I went back out. But, well, now my tire wear looks pretty good. I'm pretty even between the right front and the right rear. And even our left sides look pretty good as far as the wear goes. But during this run, I was still a little bit loose yet. So we got the tire wear balanced out, but now we got to adjust on the crossweight a little bit just to, because it's actually over rotating in the corner now. It's not sliding loose, but it's just over rotating, at least for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to, we're at 54 crossweight. I'm going to take it up to a 50. We'll go up to 55 and see exactly what things look like. So we're going to go down one, up one, down one. So we're at 54.5. Get rid of our preload. Zero out the link slack. Camber's or caster's good. Camber's good. Our toe's good. Our truck arm preloads is now good, so everybody looks happy and where they should be. So now I'm going to go out and run another 20 laps and see if we got the looseness out of it and make sure that we're still wearing tires fairly evenly. So I'll be back in 20 laps. Alright, back after another 20 lap run. And I can tell you I was driving it, and there's times it feels like it's a little tight yet, and there's times I'm getting it loose. And it could be the way I'm driving it, because I've got, since we started and I've got this kind of on the verge of being figured out now, I've got a lot more confidence in driving the thing, and I'm just driving the ever-loving hell out of it. I'm actually probably over-driving it, and that's probably why I'm struggling. It's more my driving right now than the setup. And looking at our tire wear, our right sides are within 1 or 2%, which means that's probably pretty good. We might be able to tighten it up just a tickle more. And our left side tires, they're within 1 to 2%, so that's actually looking quite well. So what I'm going to do, because it is getting a little loose on me at times, I'm going to go up another percent on the crossweight. So we're going to go to a 54.4, I believe. And we'll go one more. We'll go 54.5 just for good measure. I don't want to go that much. Yep, I got goofed up. So 54.3 to a 54.5 is going to be where we want to go. So 54.4. Go up here to the left front, because we're starting to get into the fine-tuning side of it now. And if we go to the right rear or left rear and adjust on that one, it might kick us too much. So we're going to go up here. 54.3, 54.5. All right, we're at 54.5. Get rid of our preload. Set. Camber's good. Toe's good. Toe's good in the front. casters are good. Cambers, our right front camber jumped on it, changed it on us again. So back to 2.5. Apply. I hate when I click the wrong button. And I'm actually turning a lot faster laps. I don't remember what our lap times were when I started on when we were still on the fixed setup. I can't remember what they were. But during this last couple of runs, I set my fastest lap so far of this session of a 30:033. And I know the damn thing's definitely faster than when we started, because he's just blisteringly fast, and we're just running the hell out of it. And I've got the confidence to drive the piss out of it to the point where I'm actually overdriving it and probably hurting the performance of the truck just because I'm pushing it so damn hard. But it's starting to get to the point now where it's starting to get close. And it's driving actually pretty good. And trying to put the lid back on my soda pop. So once again, I'm going to go back out, give it another quick through the garage here, just make sure everything looks good and what I'm expecting to see. Now I'm at the point now where I'm going to probably start looking at adjusting tire pressures, because I like to run about a 15-pound spread. So we got 45 on the right front, which is as low as it goes, and 45 on the right rear, which is as low as it goes. So what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm going to drop the left front down, or bring the left front up to 30. And the left rear also to 30. This gives us a 15-pound tire pressure spread. Make sure nothing went illegal on us. And that everything's where it's supposed to be. Now, that right front camber keeps jumping on us. So we gotta go the other way, back to 2.5. 1.4, so let's go 1.5 on the right rear. Well, the cambers are changing on us a little bit as we're making these changes. It's affecting the, must be ride height changes are starting to affect our camber a little bit, because we're making slight, minute changes to the ride height as we've been going through this thing. And unfortunately, I can't remember exactly what we started out with lap times. But what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm going to go ahead and save this setup. I'm going to truck main, Darlington, and we're going to save this as race V1, version 1 for now. That way we can, because I'm going to reload the iRacing fix setup, run a few laps, about 5 or so, and see what my fastest lap times are on that, and compare it to what we've got now. Oh, you piece of shit. iRacing setups, Darlington, 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 Darlington. Where the hell is Darlington? I know this thing's going to be way slower with the fixed setup compared to what we've got now, just because of all the changes and improvements we've made to it, particularly getting that damn splitter off the ground. So let's go back in the truck here, and right now our fastest lap is a 30.033. So we're going to go out and just run a couple laps and see what our fix setup actually started, see what this actually started off with. And I'm not going to drive this, I'm going to probably not drive this thing as hard as I've been driving the setup we're working on, because I know I don't think I know it's not going to be able to turn because it's going to be too tight. Well, not too bad. We can actually make it through the corner. Oh, a little loose. That's because that left rear spring. basically pushing this about as hard as I can without smacking the outside wall.
30.832.
So right now, so far, the setup we're working on is about 0.8 of a second quicker than the fixed setup. And it's definitely driving a hell of a lot better, and I know it's, right now I know it's easier on tires.
31.171.
Oh, get back here, you piece of shit. Yeah, that left rear spring is just way too soft. And it's making the damn thing snap.
Get there, I'll give an eye to it. I'll look at it.
And it looks like when I was setting the test session up, my disabled car damage option didn't stay enabled. I'm not sure what the hell happened there, but...
34.924.
Well, we're not making any adjustments to our setup right now, so it doesn't matter. When we go back to working on that, we're going to have to reload the session and make sure that that disabled car damage is turned off. So our fastest lap time with the fixed setup is a 30.8.
30.57.
And we're already starting to fall off just in the couple of laps I've turned. But I did damage the truck in the wreck there, so that might be part of it. Yeah, we'll finish this lap and then that might wrap up this part of the video because
31.531.
yeah, so right now, shit, we're a second and a half faster with our setup than with the fixed setup. And that's huge. That's a huge jump. And it only took us, how long we've been running this damn thing? We're coming on 2 hours now since we started this video and started building this setup. So in 2 hours we've gained a second and a half. And our tire wear, we were about 2% spread before on the right front to right rear. And on this setup here, just after just a few laps we ran, we're about a 1%, but as you run a lot longer, but I didn't run very many laps here. And on the other one where we were getting the 2% spread, we'd run at least 20 laps, and I don't think we turned that many here. Actually, we can find out how many we just turned, maybe. Oh, nope, my pit lap number reset when I came in pit road here and reset the truck. But I know damn well that tire wear is definitely going to be higher on this one than what we currently got on the other setup. And the other setup is the point now. We'll go over to our checklist. So our camber is okay, our nose weight is okay. Our cross weight, we're going to leave that open for a minute because we may still adjust on that a little bit yet. Front right height splitter clearance. I don't remember if I have the one in Motec still here yet, of the last one we did. Yep, there it is. Yep, our front splitter clearance right now is okay. Arm asymmetry we still have to set yet. We still got to check and set our roll center, and I can tell just looking at this blue and red trace. These are the front right heights on the right and left hand side, and if the roll center is set right, these generally will overlap each other, and there is a gap there, so the roll center is not quite right, and the roll center is a 0.97 right now, and we usually want that really close to 0. So we actually got to fix the roll center yet, do the arm asymmetry to get the right side and left side splitter heights a little better. In fact, those actually are probably all right, but so we may not have to do no symmetry or arm symmetry at all. And then we got to go through and we've got to tune our shocks. We got to do our high-speed shock settings, which those are going to be a fairly easy setting or setup because this track is not really bumpy. It's fairly smooth, which is surprising considering it's old as it is. It's built back in the 50s, but it's been repaved several times over the years. So the good news is there's not really a lot of bumps on this track, so our high-speed shock tuning should go fairly quick because we don't have to try dialing the bumps out of the track. In fact, I'll actually take a quick look here at our shock information to see how we're doing on our high-speed stuff. Our high-speed bump is 1.3 inches a second. And on the left or right front, it's 7.3 inches per second. 7 even on the right rear. Left rear is 5.5 and 1.3 on the right front. So actually our high speed settings actually are looking pretty good, if I'm reading this shock histogram correctly. I haven't really ever learned. I'm still trying to figure out how to read one of these shock histograms, so I can't look at it and tell you if that's actually a good histogram. But from the feel of it driving it around the racetrack, the high-speed settings actually feel real good. The car isn't bouncing around and jumping around on bumps and stuff like it would be if those weren't set right. So I think our high-speed stuff is pretty close, and because it feels pretty good. And I usually set my high-speed based off feel. So right now I'm going to go ahead and close Motec. And I think I'm going to go ahead and end this video for now. There will be a part 2 where we go through and finish up the rest of the stuff to finalize out this setup. I still have to run the Dover race for the truck and the Xfinity car before the switchover happens on Monday. So it might be a few days before I get this video out, or the update, or the second part of this video. I'll go ahead and upload this part of the video now, and then we can continue later. So, but in the meantime, if you stayed around this long, appreciate it, and thanks for watching. And we'll see you in part 2 in a couple of days.